Almost ready here. All right.
Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, a little slow on the trigger today. I didn't hit the second button quick enough, but Rob, welcome to the New Media Show. And if everything worked right, we're lit.
We are. Well, that's awesome.
We're lit. So that means anyone that's on a new podcasting app that has the lit support at newpodcastingapps.com or new podcasting, I think it's apps.plural.com. Podverse and a few others support the lit tag, and right now our audio stream has flipped live in those apps, quote unquote, if it worked. So someone will tell us. It's interesting because Andy's plugin that we're using this now on the New Media Show website actually updated both feeds, both the audio feed and the video feed. So I went lit on both the audio and video, but I can't separate them. I can't because they're two channels. So it's not fancy enough. So basically the audio stream is telling everybody where the audio stream is at. And then the video, there's a link in there that says where the live video is. So if you're joining us, thank you so very much for being here. And here we are, Rob. This is a few days from my big departure.
Yeah, that's true. So it might be helpful to explain to everybody kind of what lit is at a little bit granular. I mean, not a bigger picture, I guess, might be the way of saying it. So if you don't know what lit is, I know you alluded to it a little bit as part of RSS, and we did talk about it with Dave Jones, but why don't you explain the change that has been made?
So what has happened is I have placed at the chat. Basically, it's not an item it's not like a podcast episode. Right. And so I'm probably going to get this wrong. You caught me on the spot here, but it's a complete channel of information that basically what you do is you tell in the feed, you say what time you're going to go live, what time you're going to stop, the title of your event, the description of your event. You have to have a GUID, so I'm hoping that actually went, and I probably should go back and look because I may have screwed that part out. Yeah, maybe I did. So let me actually save that because I don't think see, this is where you get in trouble when you're not paying it because there's a whole bunch of stuff here that has to be manually done. And so I might have, I don't know. We'll see if it worked, but I just update the GUID. So maybe I have to hit lit again. I don't know. But anyways, for some reason, it has to have a GUID, has to have an enclosure, has to have a content link, has to have the link where the live stuff is going and cover art. And if you do that correctly, which I may not have done, I don't know.
Yeah, are you linking to the live audio stream, or are you linking to any kind of video stream?
So this show I linked to the live audio stream.
Okay.
And so anyway, if it all worked, again, I think I may have screwed it up by not putting in the GUID tag because you have to have a unique GUID for every time you go live.
Yeah.
The what technically will happen is the app, the Podcast 2.0 app, will get that signal, and you have to send a bat signal out. You basically have to do a pod ping saying you're live, and I have to use another site to do that right now because none of this is like completely integrated. It's nerdy as heck. Basically, the apps will flip from having our normal podcast listing, and there'll be a new live tag within the system. So we'll see if it all worked. Someone's going to tell me for sure, and they'll say, "Oh, you screwed it up and you didn't put the GUID in or whatever." Hopefully, it's a little forgiving, but it's, to be honest with you, I'm just going to show a screen here. Let's flip this. This is the data that has to go in, and when you save this.
Now, this is in the Blueberry Publishing app, right?
This is in New Media Show's website.
Right. Okay.
So it's in the New Media Show RSS feed.
Right. Got it.
So this live item tag has been added temporarily to the feed to tell these apps where this activity is happening.
Okay.
And then technically, if all the apps are supporting it, then they would all know we were live. Now, ultimately, Andy's got this, Andy Lehman has got a plugin that works with PowerPress and it integrates. So for now, this is not for the weak at heart. It's not difficult. You just got to get the steps right. And so once this kind of gets a little more refined, ultimately we'll get this built into PowerPress so that it probably be just, you'll have to put a few things in here, but we'll make it so the GUID updates automatically and all this, these things that probably should happen already.
Right.
And then basically what will happen is, the bat signal will be sent out, and it has an end time. So I set it today for an hour and 45 minutes in case we go over. And then when we go off, the apps will flip back to saying it's just a normal podcast listing.
Right.
So anyway, that is the crux of it to a certain extent. And, Dave Jones or somebody's yelling at me right now saying, "You got it wrong." And, but yeah, so I did everything correct except add the stupid GUID. So in my haste to try to be ready.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I was going to ask, can a podcaster use any kind of streaming link in here, or does it have to be like a specific type of a link?
So far, I think a Twitter link will work, but you need to know what it is in advance. I put for our video, or for the link I put newmediashow.com/live. The YouTube embed and the audio embed are in both. So anyway, we'll see what happens, and see if they're going to let me know. I'm sure they're already talking about it in the Mastodon chat. So, or someone, because the other night there was a bug and I sent one out and it was malformed. It wasn't my fault that the app had a bug in it, but we got the updated app or the plugin. So now we're supposedly good. I'm sure everybody's going, "What in the hell is he talking about?"
Well, it's something new, and I think it's a terrific idea, and I think it's something that if we can get it, or it's easy. And I mean, does this install you do in this, is it persistent across multiple episodes? So use it over and over again?
What I will do is, because the GUID has to update every time. You have to have a fresh GUID every time. Okay. My understanding is the only thing I will have to change is the date.
Okay.
So the date does have to be correct in the start date, end date. Now, as the tools evolve, you could probably have this set up to have a scheduler, and it would automatically update the dates. But for now, you have to manually format the date. Everything else stays pretty much the same. And you also have to know what UTC you're in. So like in Eastern, we're in minus 4 hours. Right. So you have to know what UTC. The format is like 2022-10-12, the letter T, and then 15 semicolon 00 semicolon 00 dash 04 semicolon 00. So it's really geeky. When we get this in a GUI that is modern, we'll have a picker, date and time picker, and make it easy for the podcaster to set this data. Some of the stuff they're going to, the schedule they'll have to set, and you can set it as pending, live, and end, so you can update it. I personally have been putting the item taken the item out of the feed after the event. You should, but what it really would show is you should be able to have this be smart enough that the feed knows the system knows, or your website knows it's pending. That time clicks over your website. If it's got a good cron running, it would say, okay, change the listing to live, and at the end change it to end, so that. But I don't really understand why we need status of pending live. If the schedule's there, it should just be the live item tag. So if I had any suggestions for them, I'd be like, just give start date. But I think what they do it for is, like today, we were off 5 minutes getting started.
Mm-hmm.
So, these things shift. But yeah, we'll see with time. And again, this is all fun and games. I wanted to have this done before, but I just didn't have the time. And actually, Andy was able to get this to me this week to be able to, actually the updated plugin this week. Before we get into the content, because there's good stuff we want to talk about, I got 10,000 sats from Adam. He says, Todd, you endorse the hijacking of our feed on Apple? I don't, Adam, but the problem is, unless you go to Apple and say, take it down, they're
not going to take it down.
Well, and here's the problem, though. You would have got the notification via email based upon what your RSS feed was when someone submitted it. So that's the email they supposedly used to validate or just the notification. So I would, I don't endorse it. Don't get me wrong. But people are going to do this, So what I would do is I'd reach out to Ted or the team and say, hey, this has been listed, not by us. Please remove it from the Apple Podcast listing. That's what I would do if someone had hijacked the listing and put it up there and not supposed to. Adam also sent another 10,000 sats, giving me his address, which I won't announce over the show. And then another one, he said, media buyers he sent like 30,000 sats here. So thank you so much. 1,000 sats from Sir Brian of London. He says, I'll try to wave as you fly past Israel on your way to Saudi Arabia. Cool story. Melania Trump's personal hairdresser is an Israeli Jew who flew to the kingdom with Trump. He did get off the plane with the Trumps. So that was probably, I don't know. What year was that? That'd be interesting because things have, of course, if you're going diplomatic, you just go diplomatic. So it got, so those are the boost that we've got. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I was interviewed this morning on Podland. So Friday's episode of Podland will be talking about my 18 years. I passed 18 years on October 9th.
Yeah, that's a big accomplishment, Todd.
Well, you're there. You're there with me. So,
well, as far as doing a continuous show, I think is the big distinction. I think from what you've done. I did it for 6 years in the beginning, and then I pod faded that one and then moved on to a couple different shows. So I've pod faded off and on for my 18 years in this medium. But yeah, for you to have the same sponsor and the same show for that whole period of time is quite an accomplishment, I have to say. Congratulations.
Yeah. So there's a few out there that have been doing it this long with the same show. Don and Drew, they've been here a long time. And there's a couple that are earlier, too, that are still out there as well.
Dave Slusher.
Right,
with the Evil Genius Chronicles podcast. I believe he's still doing it.
He doesn't put one out very often, but it's considered active. He still pumps one out every month or two or once in a while. Right. So he's still, and I'm sure there's more. If anybody knows of any other shows that have been around really since early 2004, I'd love to know the names of them.
Yeah, is Brian from Coverville still doing his show? Do you know?
Maybe.
Sure.
I don't know if he does Coverville per se. I think he still does a podcast. I could look it up. Let me see here. Coverville.
And there's a few others out there too.
Let's see. When was his last episode? He's still doing Coverville. So October 6th, episode 1416. So he's
1,416 episodes.
Yeah. So he's still active with that. Brian Ibbett. So Yeah, big, another big podcaster that really, he's been doing something a lot of people have not, was he's been playing
with music.
music covers all this time. So,
Right. And he's been able to keep it going.
yeah. So as a reminder, if you send us 50,000 sats, when you send that in your comment, make sure you send your address, because we're going to send you a sticker packet. Adam, I'll try to get your stuff out this week. It's been, I actually was looking at my appointment calendar, and I'm like, each day this week I've had like an hour and a half of no meetings.
Wow, that's it. Huh?
Yeah, every day. And I go home and I'm thinking, why am I want a face plant, And I actually blocked about 4 hours off on Friday afternoon where I can actually get work done. It's crazy. It really, really is. So anyway, here we are. And for those of you that are on the stream live, thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for checking in and saying hi as well. Jennifer Navarrete.
Yeah.
But did you see the tweet I sent you?
In my DM?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is very a very entertaining tweet. It comes from Misha, and I'm looking where he's from. Misha, it's Euceph. Misha Upek. And again, I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He says, I'm shocked that 75% of people, companies, brands, organizations who reach out to us at dustlight_co and want to make a podcast think that podcast teams are made of one producer and cost between $50,000 and $150,000. How are people this out of touch with market rates? Let's assume that you are making 52 episode always on chat show that sounds studio quality instead of like it was made in a bathroom. And let's assume you're making it super lean. So it comes out weekly and it takes approximately 40 to 52 weeks of production time. You need a producer who's on the show for a year, so you're likely putting that producer on salary. The base rate for a private sector for a producer in 2021 was $75K with benefits. That's 87. Actually, it's more than that. 75 plus another 25. You need an associate producer who would be around another $70K. A part-time engineer and mix master would be $40,000. Let's say you get a composer to build an original library, $8,000, or you get music library subscription for $300 a month. Now let's add studio time, tape syncs, 52 episodes. Let's say one host, 2 guests. Each episode comes out at $750 times 52 episodes equals $39,000. Let's say we don't account for artwork, marketing, music, licensing, travel, equipment, legal, educational guests, or even a storyteller. That's still $244,000 a year and just cost. Let's say we prorate it for only 10 months of production, make the show super speedy. That's over $200K. It's become harder and harder to pay producers what they're worth for a living because distributors, networks in the private sector are podcasting bizarre expectations that should be made in 6 months by one person supposedly part-time. Producers making a show alone, they are working evenings and weekends. They don't have time for other jobs. Shows are working. If they're cramming a year-long production in 6 months, they're hurting themselves in your show. For those of you that think I'm a fancy person, thinks all shows should be made from bajillions, that's not what this register. Here's a free roast I made for any podcast in 2018. Rob?
Todd. Yeah. Uh-huh.
This is my response.
Yeah.
LOL. You have lost your mind. Most podcasts are produced in the tens of dollars for independents. And at the top, maybe $250 to $500 an episode for highly produced commercial podcasts. This is not Hollywood.
Yeah, Todd. This is part of the professionalization of podcasting in the perception world. You know, if you think about it, Todd, I mean, public radio, that's where this ideology kind of came out of, right? Is putting together a team, producers, post-producers, and you have to have a host too, right?
Sure.
Not all podcasts are actually started by a host or somebody that's on a microphone.
Yep.
Right? So you have an executive producer that has a show idea, and then he builds a team around it to create the show, hires a host, hires a producer, hires a post-producer. And yeah, that's what your budget turns out to be if you're pursuing that direction in your podcasting. But that's certainly not how podcasting was built as a medium. Podcasting was built as a medium like what we're doing here with this show, and
Right.
what you've done for the last 18 years
Yep.
is, get behind a mic and do everything. But I think we are in a little bit of a different era now of expectation. That there is that part of the industry now that, you can build a career around. I mean, how many people do you see in LinkedIn that have podcast producer in their job experience title, and with a big company or a medium-sized company, more and more.
If you're in Intel, or you're a Nike, or you are somebody like that,
Right.
Fortune 500, and you don't have talent, and you want a big show, then this is probably the price is right. But if you are a small company, a small business owner, with which most podcasts are, with typically under 15 employees,
Right.
they do not have the budget to spend $1,000 an episode, let alone $20,000 an episode, or whatever it may be.
Right.
I understand that you get what you pay for, but the difference in quality and originality between a podcast that is probably done by a business and someone within it that is really passionate about the business, and that is one that's had hired help and is scripted and everything else, I bet you the delta on those is about an inch from a quality standpoint.
Yeah.
It's where, when I was at NAB many years ago, it would have been when the Roku launched. What year did the Roku come out? Let me Google that. What year did the Roku come out?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. It was probably 2007, 8.
So
something like that.
2008. So it would have been the 2009 NAB.
Mm-hmm.
We're 5 years into podcasting. And a guy walks up the booth and he says, "Hey, I got a production company, and I can produce podcast episodes for $4,000 an episode." And I laughed at him. Now, that was 2009, and I laughed at him. If someone came up to me today and said, "I can produce episodes at 4,000, and people are going to get pissed at me over saying this. If someone comes to me today and says, "I will do podcast episodes for $4,000 an episode," I'll laugh at him as well. Now, let's just back up. What do you really need? What do you really need to do a show? You need talent, and hopefully someone that doesn't have to write a script, because if it's a script, good Lord, you can shoot me in the head if it's a scripted podcast. So you have a talent. You have, let's say you know nothing. You know zero. You need talent. You need someone to help produce the show. You need an editor. Maybe a social media person. That's 4 people. So what is that going to cost you an episode if you're doing a 40-minute episode? What do you think that's going to run? $1,000 an episode?
Maybe.
I know, and I know groups that are out there that are doing that today for $375 an episode, $400 an episode, doing exactly. Now, talent might be a different. Maybe the talent is the most expensive piece of that.
Yeah.
Potentially, but then again, if you're a company and you're doing a podcast, you better be the one behind the mic. So, if I'm Nike, I'm going to hire 20 people to do my podcast because I got the budget.
Right.
One year of podcasting is about the cost maybe of doing one commercial.
Right.
It may be a fifth of doing a commercial because commercials are expensive to shoot.
Right.
So if I'm running national, if I'm a Geico, yeah, I'm going to spend that kind of money. If I'm a big corporation,
Yeah.
but the majority of shows in this podcasting space are not 98%, 99% are small business owners.
Yeah, that's true.
But
And Todd, we may see that start to rear its head a little more here, and I think it's an important topic for us to talk about because I think what we're seeing in the market right now with the economy, the way it's moving, and Yeah, mooning is the right way. Kind of moving. We're seeing layoffs. We're seeing people getting pushed out of original content opportunities, which are usually high budget production
High budget.
environments. So we may see a little bit, if the advertising market pulls back, which I'm not 100% clear that there's going to be a big pullback, but let's say it does.
I say
Right.
20%.
Right. And that could be, a little bit of a spark for us to go back to the earlier kind of more traditional podcast production that we saw in the early days of this medium.
If
right?
someone's
that really built this medium.
If someone's getting $500,000 to produce a year's worth of content, I'm in the wrong business.
Right.
I am
Right.
in the wrong business.
But Todd, let's say all these producers that were in full-time jobs,
Yep.
they get laid off, they're out there
Freelancing.
Exactly. And the expectation is that there was going to be high salaries that are available in this industry, and maybe those don't materialize again for a couple of years.
Yep.
Then what do these people do? If they want to continue podcasting, they need to start producing their own shows, and they need to do it themselves. And it could come back to a time period where we see more podcasters like what created this medium originally.
I talked to a gal this week who is producing 18 shows,
Mm-hmm.
highly professional shows.
Yeah.
And she is a team of 2 doing 18 shows a week. They're not talent. They are there for the recording, editing, posting, social, all the stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah.
They're not developing scripts. They're just
Right.
facilitating
Right.
getting the content recorded and then getting it out. And they're doing 18 shows a week. And she says she's really at her limit as far as what they can produce as
Sure. Yeah.
across 2 people. And
I'm
that
sure.
makes sense. 18 shows a week, and you're scheduling people for recording and all that stuff.
Right.
So I know what she gets for a rate, and I guarantee it's not the type of budget they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that.
But even if you're doing, let's say you're doing, let's just to use a number here. Let's say you're charging a commercial company $500 an episode, and that includes no talent. The talent comes from the company, and you're doing 18 shows a week at $500 an episode across 2 people. That's pretty good income. That's you're working your tail off, but that's before taxes, that's a number.
Right.
So
And it can be done. I think
Yeah.
there is a big group of people out there that have been bringing their talent to big companies to
Right.
produce podcasts that are perfectly capable of doing it for themselves, right?
Yeah.
And that may be where it comes back to here. I'm hoping to see a resurgence in indie producers
Right.
that come out of this economic downturn.
Blueberry Pro is not inexpensive, but it is not the type of numbers he's talking about.
Right.
You know,
I mean, look at what Spotify did.
Right.
Spotify let go, 38 people across their original content production
Yep.
team. Those are 38 people that, they'll probably, some of them will find a new place
Yep.
to pay them a good salary on producing shows. But, some of them may decide, well, I'm going to go start a network and I'm going to
Yep.
build my own thing. Right.
Right.
And that's going to, spark a resurgence if you look out, a year, 2 years from now in the podcasting space, because maybe we got a little complacent because big money was coming into the medium and people weren't as energized because they were just going in for their 9 to 5,
And I know a lot of these companies, don't take this the wrong way, everyone listening, please. A lot of these companies that are doing production have VAs overseas.
Right.
So
Sure.
that
I'm sure
work,
that's going on.
that work is going to the Philippines. It's going to Vietnam. A lot of graphic work's coming out of Vietnam. A lot of this is being done. A lot of this editing, a lot of the stuff that goes into a lot of these commercial shows by these production companies are being done by workforce overseas, and they're probably getting paid. Maybe if they're being, well, I don't know what they're being paid, but
I think it's all over the map, Todd.
I think if you think about the Philippines in itself, where the average salary is pretty piss poor, I mean, like $300 a month, dollars. That's a kind of an average salary in the Philippines. You would think that these folks, if they're paying $15 or $20 an hour, which you would hope they are, especially you can overseas prices, that is still the cost then of that production is relatively low.
Yeah.
And because it's audio, they just ship the audio file, get it edited, and once you get someone in sync, they know how to write show notes. They speak English. They do, they're good. Maybe someone has to do some follow-up copy editing or something, but I'm sure it's a turn and burn.
Right.
So, I'm getting hit up at least 10 times a week by people saying, do you need a VA? Do you need a VA? You need a VA? You need a VA? We'll help you produce your show. You need a VA?
Or that iTunes promoter that's
oh my God, they're just
trying
horrible.
to get our business.
They're
all the time.
horrible at this point.
Well, they're starting to get really aggressive too. I don't know if you've noticed.
Well,
But
their days have
they're
come
like
and
chasing you around and saying, "Why aren't you responding
it's,
to my
it's
message?"
on it's on LinkedIn. It's crazy. I keep having to
Yeah.
block people. They sneak through my filter. But I just if I'm working,
I get it. They're looking for work. The economy is tough, and I think we're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff. People are going to be fairly aggressive out there.
Mm-hmm.
And all these big corporations and companies are if you look in LinkedIn and what's going on, everybody's looking for salespeople and business development people, and so you can see what's happening is everybody's trying to squeeze as much out of the lemon as they can, right?
So, and by the way, speaking of which, if you live in Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Arizona, or Colorado, I'm looking for a new social media person, full time.
Oh, wow. Why those areas?
That's where we have payroll set up.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So
Okay.
Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Colorado, and Arizona. If you're one of those 5 states and you're a social media person and you have a great personality and you're not afraid to be in front of a camera, send me your res. I want to see it. We're hiring from.
I think a lot of people may find that there's opportunity during this time too, and this may be a good time to start something new or to start a new company or something like that, because what we're going to see is a pullback and maybe some companies going under. So there's going to be new opportunity, especially for fresh ideas and
Rob,
new talent.
2 podcast hosting companies launched this week. 2.
Just 2, huh?
2.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Pat Flynn decided he's going to jump into
that's right.
podcast hosting.
Yep. And you're right. There was one other. I can't
And
remember
another
the name of it
one
right
that
now.
is a service, and they added hosting to it. So
Right. And I think there's one other that's thinking about it too.
it's like, okay, come on, guys, come on down. You
Bring it on.
you might find the waters a little interesting right now.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'll say we're not losing anybody right now, but boy, it's there's not much incline right now. It's pretty. It's I've seen a bit of a peak based on stuff we've launched, but it's the growth is very minimal right now.
Well, it's all keyed on churn, Todd. Right?
I have no churn. Tiny amount of
If you
churn.
have any churn,
You're
then
screwed.
It's being replaced by maybe just a small amount of new shows that are replacing the churn. It's probably what's really happening.
Yeah, and I knock on wood. And this is probably not fake, so I need to cut. Yeah, that's pressed wood. Something here that's real wood.
You're gonna give yourself bad luck
Yeah.
by hammering anything other than wood.
Fingers crossed here. Our churn has always been remarkably low. So, from that regard, I guess, but it's definitely an interesting, interesting time right now. And if you just look at the podcast index numbers, it's pretty obvious. There's not a lot of new shows that are coming on at this point in time. Matter of fact, it's a great time to start a podcast. It's a really great time.
I was going to say that was the next thing I was going to say is that if we look out a couple months, there could be a huge drop off of new shows and active shows.
Well,
and that's a great time to launch a show. So,
in the last 30 days, 358 shows did a brand new episode.
Because listening typically is free. So
that's right.
It's a great value in a down economy.
Exactly. And it's true though. But the last time that in 2008 we did not see a decline in creators.
Right.
But we've seen a huge increase in listeners. Largely
I think that I agree.
Because people
and I think that's happening now too.
Yeah. And probably a good time to be a YouTuber, probably a good time any place where, if there's an ad supported model, probably, it's probably good. Because people are going to start canceling their YouTube memberships. There's going to be some drawback on those, and they're going to be willing to set through that 30-second ad instead of paying the $18 a month or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's true. I think like the Netflix models and the premium models are definitely going to take a hit.
Yeah, and that's why Netflix is coming out with a model that is advertise supported. It's a lower tier. You have to you get some ads. So, it is an interesting time, but at the same time, it's like what I'm seeing picking up is once again, right around COVID, businesses are they're looking, they're saying, okay, what can I do to shore up things? And if they weren't in podcasting already, this is the kind of calls I'm getting now is a lot of businesses are saying, okay, it's time for us to jump in here to the podcasting space. So
but how can we do it in a very cost-effective way, reach our customer base or audience, but not break the bank? And that's kind of the contrast to what we were talking about earlier here, right?
Because they're going to, they don't want to go to a studio and pay for studio time. They're going to probably pick up a Rodecaster. They're going to have some mics, maybe even just have one person recording at home and everyone else coming in via Zoom or some other solution and recording the audio that way and creating the content. And the budget is largely an editor if they don't have someone to edit. That's the most of the companies I've been talking to is, okay, we're going to need someone to edit the audio. We don't want to do the audio editing. We can handle the recording. Some companies don't want to handle the recording, so they say, can you find us somebody to help with the recording and the editing? That is about the level. They know the content that they want to create, and they just need a little guidance, need a little consult. So, and what's interesting is a question I've been asking is, I'm like, why didn't you jump into this during COVID? Why are you now jumping in instead of, because COVID, you would think that that's would have got the majority of them. And I think it was just maturity of companies and other things too that I'm hearing, that in matter of fact, they're having not great response to their marketing efforts on other social media platforms. They're not being heard on Facebook.
Right.
And LinkedIn has become this big cesspool of spammers, and people that it's just ucky over at LinkedIn right now. At least a lot of stuff I see that's coming across my inbox. It's just like, you couldn't have looked me up and actually emailed me directly. It's just, But so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, I think that people are maybe, like you said, Todd, people are scaling back their other marketing activities, and maybe they're seeing this as a more personal connection with the customer base, maybe a loyalty type of thing to some degree, a way to educate in an easier format. than even video, for that matter.
Yep.
We could even see a pullback on video too,
Yeah.
because of the cost and complications of video production.
And it's interesting because I had a chat with one of our partners that we work with quite a bit, and I don't want to reveal. See, what can I say with it? Well, the people are getting more refined. So businesses that are doing podcasts now, they have to have a realistic goal of what they need to understand, and most do not. They need to understand what value they're expecting to get out of doing a podcast. Are they reaching their existing base? Are they gaining leads, and how can they tell if they've gained leads? All these things. And another thing too is a lot of companies are regional, and they're having to now consider their strategy of how do they go national. If they've had a business before where it's been a lot of face to face, they're now, everyone's pretty comfortable on Zoom or meetings or whatever your point of poison is for these online meeting services. So I think now they're thinking, okay, I don't have to be stuck to the Detroit metro area. I can now be a national company if the business they're in allows that from a licensing standpoint. So I think that a lot of companies now, they are looking at and need to be made understood of here. Without going into too many details, talk to a podcast that's been with us for 10 years. And we went through some things on the podcaster's website, and there were some obvious things that needed to be fixed. But I asked them, I said, how are you measuring success? Are you asking your customer, how did you find us? And they weren't. So I said, how do you know? And they're doing print advertising. They're still doing local radio. I said, how do you know that if your podcast brought someone to you, or if it was a radio, or if it was the newspaper? How come you haven't been asking? And I was kind of dumbfounded, to be honest with you, because if you're a business, you need to know where your leads are coming from.
Yeah, you do. I agree.
And I'm working very hard to figure that out at Blueberry too. We're watching the flow. Where are they coming from? Are they coming from Facebook? Are they coming from Twitter? Are they coming from LinkedIn? Are they coming from a Google search? How are they getting to us and getting through our pipeline? And we've got good digital tools to track a lot of that inbound. But when you're a brick and mortar and you're doing a person to person, a person calls you on the phone. Hey, thanks for calling. Yep, here's what we do. How did you hear about us? Oh, you heard about us on the podcast. Great. Check one mark for the and then I also said, okay, so the next question is, what was the value of that lead? So let's say that this person that came to you, was that a $10,000 a year client, or was that a $10 million a year client? What was the value of the lead that you got? And if you've got $1 million lead from radio and you got a $10 million lead from your podcast, well, it sounds to me like the podcast has been a good investment. And maybe you only needed one of those $10 million leads from the podcast to make your year.
Right.
So I think businesses that are doing podcasts need to it's just like when we do advertising, normal advertising. You want to see what your CPA is, right? So I think a lot of people that are doing podcasts in the business world don't understand what their CPA is for their podcast. They don't understand the value they're getting from their show. So as I talk to business owners now and some of the new strategies I'm employing, I say, what is the value? Are you getting, if you're going to do this, what does success look like? You're going to spend this money. Going to go out and buy gear, going to spend an hour or two of your time a week doing the show. What is success? Is success one client a month? You know,
Right.
what is the success? And then again, what does the stature of that success look like? So
Yeah, and how are you going to be able to tell if it came from the podcast or not? That's the other question, right?
you got to ask, you know,
Right.
that's the thing. You have to ask the question. So,
Right.
you know, I'm giving too much advice here for you as podcast consultants out here, but it's just things that businesses now have to look
Yeah.
at, and with tightening budgets.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, Todd, that you know, so many companies now should be focused on marketing because the market's tight and finding customers is going to be a little bit tougher, and so you need to have a good communication strategy to, you know, keep the receipts coming in. You know, so you know, podcasting could be a great option if you're very strategic about it and very focused about it, and you know, you're cost conscious about it as well. But it's not easy either. I mean, it's you know, you can go horribly wrong with it too.
You know, it's
Right.
it's even to the point where, okay, so an example, a year ago,
Mhm.
okay, this is dumb. This is a total dumb example, but it's true. A year ago, if I would have went out to buy an iron, just an iron, regular iron, I'd have
Mhm.
probably went on Amazon and just went like, took 30 seconds and picked one and been done. Right?
Mhm.
$39, whatever it is to buy an iron.
Yep.
Last night, I realized I need an iron. I went on Amazon. I spent 20 minutes digging around, looking at the reviews. You know, I wasn't necessarily price shopping. I was really looking for,
Quality,
right,
good reviews,
good reviews.
right, and features.
That's right. And so I made my choice, and it was about the same price range. But
Mhm.
because money's tighter, I was a little more discriminate about what I bought. So, you know, I
Mhm.
think, and that's just one dumb example, right? But I think that's probably happening across the board. It's costing a lot more to go to the grocery store and fill a car full of gas. So,
Yeah, I'm really picky now on the food and
Yep.
the things that I spend my money on, and I'm willing to spend a little bit more to get something that's higher quality, that's healthier.
yeah. And I
So,
also am,
yeah.
you know, I'm also waived all that other stuff. You know, I'm not getting as many chips and cookies, and I love my chips and cookies. You know, I definitely have the looks for it too, right? So
Well,
those pleasure items is what I'm throttling back on.
Mhm.
And going out to lunch, not going out to lunch as often, you know, brown bagging it to work.
Mhm.
And, well, actually not brown bagging, prepared meals for lunch,
and
spending
that's
less
going to
money.
change the economy, Todd.
That's right.
Just what you just said is
Right.
going to change the economy, and just the adjustments I've been making in my life, I really haven't made any different adjustments based on the economy too much, but just because I've been prioritizing what I do based on all those factors.
Yeah.
And I think podcasters need to do that too, right?
Yep.
As they look at services and features and technology that
Yeah,
they can
what-
deploy in their podcast. What's
what-
going to be the most efficient? What's going to get the episode out the door quicker?
What's going to give you the most value, all that
Right.
stuff. What's going
And
to
what's the monetization models that can be bundled up with it?
Yeah.
Are all important choices now.
and it's you know, if we look back to where, you know, you and I have been here 18 years, and it's like, what? And when someone tries to ask me predict the future, well,
The future is now.
well, no, the future for podcasting, and again, I'll say it again and again, I'm having more fun now than I have had for a long time because of all this new stuff we're playing with. I'm a nerd too, so like going lit today, that was, of course, I jacked it up, you know, like any good nerd does. So it's just,
Well, you're a geek too, Todd.
Right,
You're not
so-
just a nerd.
but at the same time, this is the kind of stuff that makes me go, oh,
Right.
it's fun to be a podcaster. You know, this is a fun time to experiment. But the average podcaster at this point, okay, when we started doing this show, Rob, we were video streaming it. We were so far ahead.
Yeah.
Far ahead of everybody. It was rare for shows to be streaming live like we did, right?
Yep.
Rare,
And doing a video podcast
right? And
under
na-
the old definition of
right,
an RSS feed.
and now everybody's streaming,
Right.
So things are going to take, I want us to stay on the leading edge and keep moving things ahead. So for me, this is exciting times right now.
Yeah, the RSS2 stuff is definitely where the innovation
podcasting
is right now.
2.0. Yeah.
Right. Podcasting 2.0. Right.
Not podcast 2, but podcasting 2.0.
Right. Exactly.
So it is and now I get excited. There's another podcast I listen to that I can't wait. It's like as soon as it hits the hits fountain, boom, I'm playing the podcast. Sometimes I'm listening live. There's a whole bunch of stuff here that is moving that are, to me, is the exciting piece. Now, the average podcaster, it's going to be another couple of years for us to get all this right, to get them educated and get them in the pipeline. And then they're all going to be like, wow.
Yeah, it'll be exciting.
Yeah, it is. But
yeah,
it's, again, we have to get it so they understand it. So it's not, I don't have to push 4 buttons to go lit,
So I think it's really interesting, the kind of coalition that we're working on together with other podcast hosts right now is, I've been inviting in some other hosts into the community, into the group, trying to build that group out so it's more inclusive of more podcast hosting.
Are they coming? I haven't been in there lately.
Well, I think that there's a desire to, a couple of companies that I've sent to Kevin from Buzzsprout, are big podcast hosts that have an interest in it because I've talked to them about it and they want to get involved. So I think that more and more there's interest in this, and I think James is doing a terrific job in the Pod News newsletter, keeping the flame alive about it. And I think, more and more we're going to see this stuff get adopted because it's exciting, just like what you just said, Todd.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why we need to do it, is to energize this, especially in this economy. We need to give some energy into it again.
It's been also interesting too that I have, like I said, this week has been a curious week because I've had a pile of meetings. And if you could see the calendar and actually see who I've been talking to, you would be most intrigued. But I'm sure I would. Here is the consensus. I'm not even soliciting a what do you think about this? I've been said, well, confidentially between you and me, I think such and such is in big trouble. And I'm like, oh, I agree. And who the topic keeps coming up, Spotify. They keep saying Spotify's in big trouble. Spotify's in big trouble. And this has come from 4 or 5 different parties, probably the last 10 days, where people have said, and they don't necessarily listen to this show, and they said, Spotify's in trouble. What do you think? And I've already gave my prediction that 10 months on Anchor. That's what I feel at the most have left. I might be wrong.
As far as, so what are you saying as far as dropping the brand Anchor?
Yeah, I think the free money is gone. Companies have to show profitability.
Free hosting, do you think, is on the way out again?
Companies have to show profitability.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Acast cutting people? They have to show profitability. Why is other groups make cuts? They have to show profitability. They can't continue on a...
Well, they have to be able to pay their bills.
Well, again, it's been...
Pay their employees, pay all of those things we've talked about for so many years on this show.
Favorable vendors, favorable VCs, favorable investors, willing to put money at risk. So they're spending 1.5 what they're taking in. And now the interest rates are up. Money is going to get tight.
It's already tight.
Tight. And investors are only going to invest and put money in cash positive growing companies.
Yep,
unless you have got something that is like, holy crap, this is the next big thing. Yeah, you're going to get your $50 million or 100 or 300.
even that may not be enough. I mean, look what's happened to Tesla right now. I mean, they're getting just hammered by the markets.
Right.
And they're extremely profitable company.
So, and I think what will happen too is that the pain. I don't want to be a naysayer, but I can just kind of see it. I think there's going to be, again, my number's 20% on ad spend, but the ad spend is going to move down into programmatic. It's going to come out of host reds. And it's going to go into programmatic.
So when you say 20%, it's going to drop 20?
Yeah, I think it's going to drop 20%, but I think that money is going to get moved.
So is that the lower levels of CPM, or is that ad buy?
I think just ad by cut and spend.
Just cut and spend.
Cut and spend. That's my prediction, and hopefully I'm wrong. But I can't see it going much further than that. But time will tell. We'll see. No one's telling us anything. There's no one sending you and me emails about what's going on in the space. And when it's quiet like this, then people are more, when good times are going, people are more willing to talk. And now people are kind of, they don't want to,
because everybody's so competitive now.
They don't want to say nothing.
Everybody's very competitive right now.
Yeah, very competitive. Very, very, very quiet about what's going on in the space.
Yeah.
So.
Not as much collaboration.
Oh, no. Oh, no. There's collaboration in Podcast 2.0. That's the only place there's Podcasting 2.0. There's the only place there's collaboration. Because we understand the collective good for all. We understand the value of what is being produced for the collective good of all. And
Todd, I don't think that what happened a couple of weeks ago with the buying of ads in games helped the market very much either, right? It didn't exactly build confidence in the podcast advertising market.
No.
And from an agency perspective and a brand perspective,
I'm frankly very disappointed, personally.
Yeah. These things have been going on in the medium for years and years and years, but the timing of this was
okay.
Horrible.
If it has been going on for years and years and years,
I think it has, Todd. I think it has been going on for a long time. It's just that people didn't either notice it or, Todd, people have been buying downloads from people in, who knows what country.
Yep.
For Nigeria or whatever for
and it's like
10 years now.
It's like they're cutting their own throat. They're lowering the value.
Right, but most of the platforms have been blocking that.
Yeah,
stuff.
that's true.
But the game buying is something that is almost like it's a little closer to being okay, but it's not. Right?
It's not okay.
Right.
I'm on the record. It's fraud.
Yeah. And I think most people would look at it that way.
Well, you might be surprised.
Well, I guess it depends on your
who your affiliation is.
Right. What's your guiding light? Right?
Oh no, who your boss is.
Right. Yeah.
Or are you under pressure to make numbers?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well,
are you under pressure to show growth?
I think we know who those people are right now. The ones that are under pressure, right? They're usually the big companies that have been investing heavily in this medium, and I'd hate to see some companies start to pull out of the medium.
Well,
at some point.
Guess who just CNN already throttled back for the third time? It's
Todd. I've been around long enough, and I know you have too. I've seen the roller coaster ride on this.
Up and
so
down,
if I go back far enough, a lot of these brands and everybody's like, "Ooh, podcasting." They were in it originally, and they said, "Nope, I'm out." So
they've come and gone a couple times already.
Yeah, right. So,
but some of them spent so much money now they kind of like, we kind of have to stay in. But here's
I kind of went through that a little bit with Microsoft. Time at Microsoft working on Zoom.
Yeah.
So there was in and out, right?
But here's the curious thing:
Right.
These exclusive deals aren't looking so good now, are they?
They're
They
actually
got-
looking horrible. in
They
most
got an
cases.
exclusive
Right.
deal.
Right.
They went on exclusive platform. Their audience dropped by 75%. They didn't get any help with marketing. Just left to hang out to dry.
Mhm.
And you know what that really says to me? Is maybe, sorry, I'm just going to say it the way I feel. Maybe those layoffs were warranted.
Okay.
Because if you are a part of a core team around a show and the show hosts come out and say, we got no support in marketing or anything like that, whose fault is that? Is that the corporate or is that the team? I don't know the full story. I'd love to. If one of you guys got laid off, please, want you on. Come on the show. Want to hear your side of the story. I want to hear from those folks. I want to hear, and they won't burn bridges because it's bad to do that.
Yeah. Right.
But was it because the team wasn't given resources or the team didn't do it?
Well, it's like what an independent podcaster has to deal with, right? I mean, who's responsible for the success of the show?
Someone's very angry at me right now.
Or lots of people, actually.
Yeah,
but
probably.
That's okay. Right. But whose show is it? See, that's part of the issue here, really, at the bigger picture, right?
Right.
Is who? I mean, if you're a company and you come up with this concept of
Yep.
a show, all right,
Yep.
and you hire a team.
Yep.
Really, who's responsible for that show?
The company is.
Yeah, they are, but company are people, right?
Yeah,
And-
that's true.
But like what you've done, Todd, for 18 years with your show. You own the show.
I
You
own
are
the show. I'm the show.
You are.
I'm
you are
marketing.
responsible
I'm
for
social.
the
I'm
show.
everything.
So guess what? You care.
That's right. That's
In
true.
these big corporations, who actually cares?
That's true. They write the check. They say, we got this, made a headline.
Right. So this show will come and go, and actually more and more. I mean, I think we're seeing to some degree. I think I heard there was one show that the network, whatever, and I can't remember who the company was, actually took an existing show that they had created,
Oh, yeah.
right, and then replaced all of the co-hosts, right, and kept the same name
That's
and
right.
everything like that, and relaunched it.
Well, they relaunched the show. No, they relaunched a different show using the feed of the other show.
Okay, well, I thought there was one
Or maybe
too
it
that
was-
launched
Probably.
using the same name,
Probably,
too,
probably.
but a different show with two different hosts.
Are they so stupid they don't understand that people come for the host, not for the show?
Right, right. Well,
duh.
I kind of think that the big media companies forget about that too.
I think they
right.
just think they can throw anybody in the seat.
Exactly.
Joe Rogan show doesn't exist without Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan dies tomorrow. That's God hope he doesn't. But Joe Rogan dies tomorrow. Joe Rogan show's done.
You can't like go out and find somebody.
Rush
on the street
Limbaugh.
to come
Rush,
in.
Rush Limbaugh died, and they run reruns for about 6 months. But where's Rush Limbaugh's show? Done.
Well, I think a lot of the big media companies think that they can just create a show name,
Mm-hmm. No.
just like a show name, and then that host that is interchangeable.
No. You can't take and put two other people in this show and be the new media show. It's not the same dynamic.
Right. It's not the same show.
It's
It
not.
doesn't have that same connection with the audience. I mean,
No.
it may be better. Who knows? It could
Yeah,
be
maybe.
better,
Might be.
but it could also be worse.
Right.
So it's a gamble. So any success like this show has, it was built off of the good and bad of us.
Yep. And mostly bad,
We're a couple of old white guys. So that's definitely
So
a negative to us.
But we are who we are.
We are.
I
We
can't-
can't.
I can't
that,
change
right?
it.
Right.
No. And
And if I tried, I would get even more trouble. So right.
that's a whole another hour and a half conversation. But I think the key here is that anyone that's looking in a podcasting space, now's the time. If any time I don't normally say that. I think this is a great
Well,
time to
it's-
get into podcasts, and not for my business. I think it's a great time to get into podcasting.
That's why I'm starting to produce
That's right.
content again myself. Is
Yep.
that I've seen these cycles before,
Yep.
and at the end of the day, it's like I spent the last 3.5 years, really only doing this show with you.
Right.
But I don't really consider my involvement in this as really like me doing a podcast. I just show up and you do all of the publishing
But
and all that
up
stuff.
until 3 months ago, no one had tweeted on our Twitter account in years, so you took over the Twitter accounts. Thank God you're doing that,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's,
And that's starting to get some interest out there.
Yep.
That Twitter account.
Yep.
So it's helpful.
it's, and I just, I'm at a point now where we can only do what we can do. I can't control what's going on with these big companies. My focus still remains
That's
for,
Well, it's
for
focused on the content creator
and the creator.
podcaster.
That's
right.
that's
That's who I'm.
That's where my heart's at.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's where my core is. I mean, I do have an interest in the business side of podcasting.
Yep.
I do want to help that. I because I know at the end of the day that's going to drive economic benefit to podcasters long term. So I do have that interest, and I do want to see that flourish, but not at the expense of the medium.
No,
though.
no.
Right.
And it's just like in the day to day right now, it's just like for me, it's like we're an afterburner because I shouldn't say this. I'm trying to stay ahead of my dev team. My dev team's just knocking stuff out, and
Well, that's a good problem to have, Todd.
oh, you have no idea. Yes, so and make sure everybody's happy, and and so juggling all that.
Right.
Sadly, the gal that we hired recently to be one of our direct marketing specialists with this on the social media side and do data analysis, she's getting ready to do her master's degree. She's looking for a new spot to go and do data, and I just wish her the best of luck. She's going to make someone an absolutely fabulous. I told her, when you get done with your degree, come on back. So I want your resume again. So it always is painful to lose a great team member, but they're furthering themselves, they're going on further education, and like you can't, and you want to set somebody up to have success. So it is, it's one of those things where, okay, we're going to go find somebody that's as dynamic and good and bring them on the team and keep on rolling. And maybe this is a good time to be hiring somebody with people, out. And it's a full-time gig with benefits. So it is a, there are ups and downs in any business, but it's just like, whew. Could you ever wish you could clone yourself?
Well, I would love to have a robot,
It's I've always thought it'd be cool to
that
have.
actually can do all my, I can mow the lawn, or I can do the dishes, or take the garbage out.
It's like we've talked about, and the team actually said, "Can we get you an assistant?" And I'm like, so much of what I do is one-on-one. It's personal. It's relationships. There's nothing really an assistant can do for me.
Right.
I'm not having to worry about, there's someone taking care of payroll and all HR and all that stuff. I'm just doing what I'm doing. I just don't know how an assistant would ever fit in. I don't know. They can't do my email. It'd take a year to train them on how to what to respond to and what not to respond to. So,
yeah, I don't want to have any kind of anybody else, clone me per se.
I want to clone of myself. I want times two of me.
Oh, you do?
Absolutely.
Well, how are you going to hold yourself accountable for what you say if
the clone stays in the office
clone?
and work? The clone stays in the office and works 24 hours. If it's a clone, I trust him.
But what if that clone goes off the rails because it had a defect in its brain?
Well, that's all hypothetical anyway.
Or the clone kills you off, Todd.
Well, maybe that.
And takes over your life.
Oh, great! I don't have nothing to worry about. I live on.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
it's dumb talk here, Rob.
that's all right.
But yeah, I think we all wish we could be cloned at times.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to get twice as much done in a day. Sure. Sure.
We still would. There would still be work to be done. It wouldn't finish.
We're never done. That's for sure.
No, it's not. Yeah, and I think for most podcasters, they probably feel the same way. They're never done. They're always working. At least those are actively working. I really actually, those shows that don't have, they don't worry about money. They're just showing up and having fun. They're doing content with a couple of friends. No stress. That's a podcast.
That's perfect right there.
That's a podcast.
When you show up to the show with a big smile on your face.
You do a chit chat and have a good time, and you publish it, and you're done.
Right. And I think we've seen over the last couple of years kind of a little bit of a demonization of, just the talk shows like what we're doing here, right?
Right.
It doesn't have to be scripted. We don't have to have this massive script.
We don't even edit.
Right.
We don't edit.
That's a hotly debated topic. That's a whole profession now in podcasting.
But and I tell you, I have done 1,600, 2,000 some shows and maybe edited 5 and stuff that I did gross mistakes. I've edited, but other than that, it's like, who has time for editing? Do you guys wish we would edit?
You wouldn't have time to edit, Todd, because you do what you do like 5-6 shows a week?
I do 4.
4. Okay.
4.
Well, 2 and then
two
other.
2 that are an hour, 1 that's 30 minutes, and this one that's an hour and a half.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you do 4.
And 2 of those are after hours in the evenings.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's past working hours because it's a non-work show that I do not get paid by my company on company time to do.
Yeah. And that's an example of what people can do.
But I do get paid by GoDaddy.
Yes, you do. For a very long time.
And thank
How
goodness
is
so.
GoDaddy doing these days, Todd? Just curious.
We're meeting our numbers. I've actually had a couple pretty good months where we've been above average on sales numbers. So their business is their business. I think they're a major player in the domain business and hosting business, and it is what it is. I don't keep track on a day to day what they're doing. I don't, but the product is the same. It's pretty simple. Domain names and hosting accounts. It's pretty basic. It's not like this super sexy thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, the reason the numbers are up is because people, when the economy starts getting funny, people start thinking about alternative ways of making money. They think about starting an online shop. They think about they start looking at recession-proof ideas that they've been sitting in their heads for years. And they say, this time now, let me go out and have had a domain they've sit on for 6 years. And I say, it's time to launch this e-commerce. It's time to do this consulting, or it's time to do this. That's why my numbers are up, because people are concerned with what's going on in the economy. So they start launching businesses, and creating new things for revenue streams.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I've been telling my audience for the past 6 months, that's what they need to be doing too. Because you never know when the layoff call is going to come.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think now is an interesting time. I mean, layoffs are always stressful and they're difficult on people, but they also create an environment of kind of the potential of renewal and new challenges in people's lives.
And potential opportunities.
Right. So I think that there's always I've gone through lots of turnover in companies that I've worked for over the years, and it's always turned out to be okay. Sure, there's times when the economy gets so bad that there is an opportunity, unless you have skills that are relevant to an area of the economy that's not affected.
Yep.
But I've always found it to be an energizing time. Scary, but energizing. Yep. Nonetheless. So that's how I'm looking at it these days.
So, it's interesting too. The news has been a little thin lately. Not a lot of big news coming out of the podcasting space. Kind of quiet. And that's another indication that things have cooled a little bit in the spaces. You're still seeing deals being made here and there, but it's
Nothing.
it doesn't have the
like-
same frenzy
No.
as
No, so I think we are
as it had.
Gonna come back to a time where people are really going to be focusing down on the shows that have solid audiences, and that's what we're seeing, I think, start to happen, is shows that basically deliver the ROI,
Mhm.
and that's what the advertisers are looking for, and you can just see it in the market. That's what everybody wants. So a show that has great connection with its audience, has a great following, has loyalty, has all those, and I think we're also seeing a real focus on brand safety and compatibility, brand compatibility, as being a real focus in the industry over the last 6 months, and I believe it's going to accelerate.
But
So advertisers can be properly matched up with shows in this very divisive market right now of ideas.
one thing that's been interesting too is the number of deals I see coming across my email inbox of companies that are looking to bail, that are looking to sell. And
Sell companies, or are you talking about podcasts, shows?
companies
Companies. Okay.
in
Which
the
can be the same.
in the podcasting space. Let's just put podcast related businesses. Anything that's under the sun, A to Z.
Everybody wants to be acquired by somebody.
And they want to be acquired. And I signed some NDAs, obviously, and can't go into any details at all or give any hints without wanting to get sued. But it's what I'm seeing is unrealistic evaluations based on revenue, and someone looking for an exit that has a lifestyle business that wants a 7-figure exit on something that maybe is more like a 5-figure valuation, from that standpoint. So
Right. That's interesting.
yeah.
Everybody's trying to carve out their niche
Yep.
of the market. So, yeah, I mean, Todd, it's a time of change in the medium, and we're all kind of trying to adjust to it and try and do the right thing in the market for content creators, and it's going to be, we're coming into the holidays. Actually, late next week is NAB show, which I'm going to be at in New York City. And I'm also doing the Podcast Radio Futures conference that's going on as a companion event there. So I'm going to be
I got hit.
speaking at that.
I got hit up by Gerald over there,
Gerald, yeah.
and I didn't even know about this until 2 days ago.
All about this conference. going
Yeah.
on there?
So if any of you are in New York, in the New York area, the Podcast Futures event that Rob just referred to,
it's on the 19th of October.
and I asked him for a description. He says, Podcast Futures brings together the business of podcasting, exploring ideas around discoverability, Gen Z, ad insertion, networks, listener habits, and even how the car connects into the world of podcasting. Podcastfutures.com is the website. My understanding is tickets are $55.
Right.
And it's on the 19th. So what are you speaking about, Rob, there?
I'm going to be on a panel talking about podcasting and Gen Z. So,
Panel and Gen Z.
Yep. So talking about the Gen Z generation, which is I think the age group 10 to 25, and the use case for podcasts for that generation, which we've seen explode in the podcasting medium, and how it's being utilized as kind of like a mental health therapy.
Right. Well,
yeah.
my mom and I used the show we did after my dad died as a mental health thing, Sherrycast.
Right.
We used it 26, 27 episodes. We got it out of our system, and that was it. It was about
Yeah.
her and my grief of losing my father and everything that transpired post.
Yeah, I think that the data is showing that the Gen Z generation came out of COVID with quite a bit of mental distress in the environment that they grew up in because of their lack of connection to their community and just the tough nature of social media
Right.
in that generation. So podcasting has really been a positive thing to that community.
I
generation.
I believe it. So speakers: David Allen Musk, Chief Creative Officer at founding member of Evergreen Podcast, Kavita Kukar. Did I pronounce her name correctly? Moderator, Podcast Radio Network. Fred Jacobs from Jacobs Media, Mattia Verzella from Spreaker, Carolyn Gilbert from Nuvoto, Gerardo Orlando from Evergreen Podcasts, Megan Lazovic from Edison, Dave Sosin from Target Spot, Leigh Jacobs from Nuvoto, Jacob Schwartz from Media Hub, Halataha from Profiting Podcasts, of course you, Rob, Aman Focus from New York Sadia Khan from Immigrantly Podcast, Gary Krantz from KMG Networks, and of course Gerard Edwards from Podcast Radio Network. So those are your speaker lineup. What is it, a whole afternoon, one day?
Yeah, it's just one day. It goes from 10 a.m. to 5, I believe, and that's the same time I'm going to be working a booth at the NAB. It's adjacent to the NAB at the Javits.
Right.
So.
And then I'll be in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia at the Ignite event. I've been getting hit up now on LinkedIn quite a bit. So if you're checking the show out for the very first time and you're a potential Saudi creator, this is an event at the in the financial district in Riyadh that you'll want to get signed up for. Quote unquote, expecting 15,000. We'll see what the number is.
Todd, do you happen to know, is there a cost for people to attend that?
I don't think so. I don't think
so. You think
there's a
it's-
cost. But yeah, so I'm on a panel on Friday. Be very, very, none of this is going to be streamed live. And then I have a meet and greet time one day as well, a certain time.
Oh,
but
it's not going to be streamed at all. It's not
I
gonna
don't
be
think so. I haven't
recorded or anything.
We'll find out when we get there. This is their first event, so this will be interesting out of the gate.
Yeah, but if they have 15,000 people there, that would be great for them to have some sort of a recording of it.
Yeah, and again, we'll see what the numbers are. But
Or
what's
maybe you could record some of it while you're there. Or
yeah,
something.
that's
Ask
possible.
if you can distribute some of it. Right?
The auditoriums are going to have Arabic and English, so everything's going to be translated. So those are
that makes sense.
yeah. So it should be an interesting event for sure. So.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm going to definitely have something to talk about when we get back, and you will too from your event. So should be exciting. One way or
there's
the
a
other.
lot of stuff going on in New York next week too. There's the Advertising Week. This is a huge conference going on there too, with a bunch of podcasting sessions going on as part of that event too. So that was one of the challenges I had with trying to do anything with
Right.
this, is because everything's happening at the same time. So it's
Yep.
hard to be everywhere.
And I'll be flying on a Lufthansa, so it's my first time and first time going through Frankfurt too. Anybody been through Frankfurt Airport? I got like an 8-hour layover early in the morning.
Yeah, I did a long time ago, but it's been a couple decades.
Yeah, so
now.
this is, so if anyone has any advice for, 7 a.m. arrival in Frankfurt and 8 hours of hanging out, let me know. A little too early to drink beer, but, who knows, maybe. It's noon somewhere.
So give it a shot.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the lack of beer, Todd?
Oh!
Back to-
Oh, you did? You trimmed it.
you
Oh.
didn't notice? Wow.
I
okay,
didn't even. So are you going to participate in No Shave November, or are you done for a while?
I don't know yet. I'm playing the stubble game now, Todd.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're going to, here's what you got to do. You got to go full bald.
What?
Yeah, full bald. Yeah, shave it all off.
Just get rid of it.
So how many Satoshis do we have to earn on the show we got a lit boost 26 minutes ago. So it's happening somewhere. How many Satoshis do we have to earn to get you to go bald? Maybe do we need a Bitcoin's worth?
I don't know that I'm going to go bald, Todd, for now anyway. I'm
Oh.
going to let it go natural.
Okay. All right. Well, I tried.
I know you did.
I don't know how you'd look bald.
I don't either.
You might have the Herman Munster look a little bit.
I think maybe I would. So I don't know that I necessarily want that. I'm fighting hard to keep every hair that I have in my head. So.
Well, I did the flip over for years until I said forget it. So, at some point you'll say, okay, let's give it a try. You do it over a 3 or 4 week time period when no one can see you.
Right. Exactly.
Or just go high and tight
you do
once.
the opposite and you go get, that fancy hair transplant surgery in Turkey.
No.
No.
I'm not that vain. All right, everybody. Todd at blueberry.com, blueberry without the E's. And then, of course, at Geek News on Twitter.
Yeah, I can be found on Twitter too, at Rob Greenlee and robgreenlee.com. And you can send me an email, rob.greenlee@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. And go check out my podcast, Spoken Life Show, that I'm kicking off. Actually, I'm going to start posting some videos too.
Wow.
So it's not just audio.
So Spoken Life Show, do you have it at spokenlifeshow.com?
I do, but it's not connected up quite yet.
Okay,
so
all right.
It will be probably this
So
week.
Spoken Life Show, just Google it or, look in
It's
Apple
in
Podcasts
Apple
and all the other
in
places.
Google and
Right. All right, cool. If you listen to the show lit today, we want to hear if you listen to it lit.
I'm curious about it too.
Yeah, and
Send us a screenshot or something.
yeah, absolutely. And I will make sure that I lit it up correctly next episode. Of course, I've been gone for 2 weeks. I'll probably forget how to do it. So, all right, everybody, thanks for being here, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And if you have any tips on what's going on in the podcasting space, Rob and I would really like to know.
Yeah. So we're not back doing a show next week because that's when we're gone at all these conferences.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll come back jet lagged to, what's bad. I am actually not available the Wednesday following the show too.
Oh, okay.
It might be 3 weeks before we're back.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm not available the following week either. 2 travel things in a row. I come back from Riyadh on Sunday, then I fly out again on Wednesday for a couple of days. I have a short business trip. I forgot. So we'll see what we can put together. Maybe I can find a time we can slap it together.
We can squeeze it together on some other platform or something.
Yep. All right. Okay. Thanks. Right. We'll see you next time. Right back.
Okay.